It started as a modest software company in a Silicon Valley garage, the product of a creative rebellion in Xerox Palo Alto Research Center by its founders John Warnock and Charles Geschke. Today, Adobe powers creativity for millions, from youngsters editing social media videos to professionals building Hollywood blockbusters. At its helm for nearly 2 decades is Shantanu Narayen, the Hyderabad-born engineer who transformed the company from a boxed software provider into a cloud-first, AI-savvy juggernaut. When it comes to Indian American CEOs steering large tech companies, it will be safe to say that Shantanu is the OG. Our conversation with Shantanu happens as the industry itself is in a flux. Tariffs are threatening to derail the global economy, and there are multiple geopolitical tensions simmering. Generative AI is itself redrawing the boundaries of creativity, democratizing design while also raising new questions about ownership, authenticity, and the future of work. Tech giants, startups, and regulators are all vying to shape what comes next. Can Adobe retain its position in an AI-powered world? How is it maneuvering the global uncertainty? What does Shantanu think about the immigration debate? In today's corner office conversation, we decode all this and how Adobe is evolving in this high-stakes moment through the eyes of a man who's been steering the ship and has seen many a storms. It's Thursday, the 15th of May. We are your hosts, Surabhi Agarwal and Annapurna Roy, and this is the Morning Brief. So, Shantanu, recently you spoke at Waves and you made a very important statement where you said that I think the creative economy what will set India apart. India has done so well when it comes to software and as well as manufacturing, it's now picking up. Do you want to quantify that statement? Do you want to tell us more about how do you think India can go on that path?
Well, at first, it was just such a privilege to be at the Waves conference. The fact that India has realized that the creative economy is not just all about publishing or video, but actually underlies commerce. It underlies education, and the emphasis that they're placing on everything from the right tools, the right monetization. For somebody at Adobe who's passionate about the creative economy, I mean, it was just an absolute wonder to see it. And so I think if you think about the actual opportunity for creative, it's immense.
Right. That was very nicely put, Shantanu. But let me ask you, how can AI and Adobe contribute to that?
Computers at the end of the day are really good at pattern matching and automating. And, we always say at Adobe, people have a story to tell. And AI is only going to enable them to tell that story with different modalities. And so I think AI is going to further make available and accessible the ability to tell their stories. And so I think that's really the power. I know there's some apprehension about what AI might mean for jobs, but we believe that every fundamental technology innovation has actually made it even more affordable and accessible for more people to come into the system, right? I mean, before Photoshop, everybody did imaging on high-end, proprietary systems, and now you have billions of people using it. And we think AI will have that same kind of inflection ability for creatives.
So there's been a lot of conversation in India and across the world about copyright regimes and how we should approach them, how governments should approach them. What's your take? And when you speak with governments, do you make any specific suggestions on, how we should look at copyright in the age of AI?
We've worked with multiple companies and we can share more. I mean, we've helped draft AI ethics regulations. The one initiative that I'm incredibly proud of is what we call the Content Authenticity Initiative. Mm-hmm. I think you folks have actually, signed up for it as well. And, we think that attribution of content is important. And I think we all have the shared responsibility of how do we get the consumers of your content to say, I want to make sure that the content that I am actually consuming is coming from a verified and trusted source. But even now with the check marks that you have on content, so people can actually look at the attribution of the content. So that's one area where we work with governments. I think the other area where we worked a lot on is AI ethics and data sovereignty and what you should do. And again, whether it's in India, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Japan, whether it's in the US, we've helped draft a lot of the legislation in conjunction with the governments.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the talent aspect you mentioned about that. I think with AI, India is also contributing to a lot of AI talent, and we are seeing companies hiring remotely where people are working out of India and contributing to, say, companies in the US also. There's a lot of debate about the immigration norms in country like US. Where are you on this entire immigration debate that is happening right now in America?
Well, I always tell the story of my graduating class. 65% went to the US, right? My brother, who's older than me, 90% of his graduating class went to the US. And now I think the new generation, 5% go to the US. And so, if you're an Indian, you look at it and say, oh my God, this is phenomenal for India because the people are finding incredible ways to, grow their career and contribute to India. I think, at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in a lot of this work can be done remotely. And so, for us, again, just a changing of the times. When I first joined the company, a big question at Adobe India used to be, how many years do I have to work in Adobe India before I'm eligible to transfer to the Adobe US site? I don't know that I've had that question asked of me in the last 15 years, which means people love the fact that they can have an incredibly positive career in India. And so we're not one of those companies, unlike the systems integrators or outsourcers who have this big issue with visas or immigration. We're like, it's a personal choice.
Right. We've seen the India-UK FTA being signed yesterday, and we've seen some of the norms being eased from UK's front. I'm asking this in the backdrop of trade tariffs also, which have been implemented. Do you think that countries like Europe, which are sort of now waking up to some of these opportunities, will be better in the long term as compared to, say, American government or American companies, which have to bear the brunt of tariffs? And
I'm still a big believer in the Indian and the American economy. I think that at the end of the day, as long as the Indian economy and the American economy do well, it's good for both countries. And so I'm an expert in building software. That's what I like to focus. But I think all these play out in a way at the end of the day where I think the relentless move towards allowing for free trade, whatever that free may mean between countries, is the way it's going to go. And I think what's changed perhaps is post-COVID, people have all said supply chains also need to be closer to home. So people, for whether it's security reasons or other reasons, have access to that. But I like to focus on the things that I can control, which is building great software and serving customers.
Right. In terms of the macroeconomy right now, what is your overall sense of, how clients are? Because there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. People don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, right? There's a lot of variables, if I can call it that, right? So what is a larger client sentiment?
I think the sentiment that I'm hearing from my CEO friends, firstly, companies like Adobe, what should we do? We're the companies that frankly have the wherewithal, we have the brand, we have the capability. And so in economic downturns, stronger companies actually should get stronger. Second thing we say is at Adobe, we plan for the upside and we'll react to the downside. Having said that, I would say the sentiment, globally, because we've had this massively successful economic run, is probably a little bit more negative, as a result of all these things. But if you think about it as building a company for the long run, it's another blip on the way to long-term growth.
When we look at AI, a lot of AI companies, startups are disproportionately based in the Silicon Valley. China is driving a lot of work that is happening out of in AI. Does India have a sort of an unlevel sort of playing field, because there's so much money going into companies in US, companies in China is pumping into a lot of money? How can India sort of arm itself in this race?
If you're looking at the India opportunity, I think the India has so many. Access to capital is not an issue in India anymore. Access to talent is not an issue. And the demographics, if you really look at the demographics of all countries on the planet, India probably has now got the best hand. And so, I think with all of these, I look at, what are the things that you build on? And I think for India, those are the things that are going. It's an incredibly educated demographic. That's a young demographic, and access to capital in this country is infinitely better than it was when I was, growing up in this country. And so I think all those three augur really well for the Indian economy. And last but not least, I think the aspirations of the Indian population to build companies not just for India, but at the global scale is magnificent.
Right. When we talk about the creative industry, I think one of the fears is that AI is going to hit the creative industry the most because, some of that ideation, some of the work that was predominantly, dependent on the human mind, AI can do it so well. Where do you see this going? How does the whole process undergo a change? And what are the initial signs that you're seeing being, one of the pioneers in this field?
A couple of observations. I mean, the first observation is if you think about where the state of AI is the most advanced in the world, it's about software development. Yet nobody talks about the fact that we won't need any software engineers in the world because it's very clearly made people more productive. And I share that story because I think that's the real way of looking at it. People who use AI will replace people who don't use AI. Just like people who used automation or computers probably replaced. So that is my fundamental belief. I think as it relates to maybe where creativity and AI is different, the first is how do you respect intellectual property? So I think this will require people to, create different forms of skill that are going to be even more important to differentiate, their craft from everybody else's craft. I think what's different this time is the speed at which it's happening and the accessibility at which it's happening, right? Because something like ChatGPT has seen the fastest adoption perhaps of every technology, partly because it builds on every other successive generation of technology. And so AI is really complementing all the benefits of the fact that you can do all this on your mobile device, that you can do it with all of the data stored in the cloud. And there are people who are going to see this as more disruptive. But I think it's the job of companies like Adobe to view this as an opportunity and to, leverage it rather than fight it.
Coming to Adobe, can you speak a bit about how AI is being used? What level of coding or across different functions, how AI is being adopted internally?
It's extensive in the software development. There are products like Cursor AI or Copilot, GitHub that people are using very extensively, testing and being able to test your software using AI to make it even more robust it's widespread, the adoption of that. So I think that's one area where in building the products, people are certainly using AI. People are using our AI products a lot, right? When you think about the fact that we're the largest provider of marketing tools in the world, when we like to either say we're sipping our own champagne or eating your own dog food, use whatever expression you want. But the usage of AI, our own tools within our marketing organization, is extensive. We are customer zero for all the products that we use. And frankly, the empowering thing is it's all been driven by the employees who want to do it faster, cheaper, better, and want to take on more. And because Adobe is about a growth story and the fact that they're all embracing it, it's music to my ears.
You spoke about what you're seeing of the projects coming out of the Indian employees, but at a larger level, how would you outline Adobe's AI strategy and the AI roadmap?
Well, there are four things that we talked about. When we first started our AI strategy, it all starts with data first, because AI is about models. And if you have models need to be trained on data that we have license for, something that's very different because we have to respect the intellectual property rights of the creatives that we work with. In the models area, it was very important for us to first build our own models to understand the capability and the power of these models, as well as how you control it within applications like Photoshop. Because people at the end of the day use features. They're not interested in the model, they're interested in how can I do generative fill in Photoshop? How do we strategically think about what models we build and what models do we leverage with partners? And so, we certainly support OpenAI. We're working to build custom models for companies. And as other enterprises choose, whether it's Anthropic or Gemini or Microsoft's version of OpenAI, whatever models they want, we support that. So that's at the models layer. A year ago, if you had asked me this question, I would have then said, most of the innovations really happening at the interface layer because people use products, right? I mean, you're using our marketing cloud to accomplish something, and all of this magic that we build with data and models has to manifest itself in the interface because that's what people get value from. We have new products, whether it's Acrobat AI Assistant, where you can have a conversational interface with an Acrobat, or whether it's content management side as you're creating a web. So that was at the interfaces layer. I think more recently, the fourth layer of that stack with AI is agents. So, net, we have data with AI, we have the models that we're building ourselves and partnering with, we have the agents that's pulling together a lot of these tasks in ways in which you can automate. But at the end of the day, the value is really in the interfaces or the user experience that people do. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done across all four layers.
Understood. So, if you can speak a bit about the India market, any sense of the growth that Adobe has been seeing here, customers, AI adoption among customers in India, any light you can shed on that?
When we first introduced Firefly, as you can imagine, we're tracking a lot and we've had freemium models for this. But we saw that India, the adoption was really immense. And because, people here are so resourceful, they want the best technology and they're going to find access to the best technology. And so before we had started to, have these credit packs and we were allowing people, the usage in India was dramatic and continues to be, something that is really of immense importance to us. At one point, the team came to me and said, we're seeing a massive drop off in the amount of Firefly usage. And this was for 1 week. And unknown to the users, but I knew it was the week that India was playing in the final of the cricket against, when we beat South Africa. And I said, don't worry about it. The traffic's going to come back again. The country is preoccupied right now with something else. And so, that's just an indication of the kind of usage that we're seeing. PDFs are clearly, the way we do it, but how it manifests itself might be different. The usage of PDF in India may be more through a WhatsApp platform than another platform. And so we've also been focused on tailoring it. But usage of Express, which is a product for everybody, the usage of Photoshop, usage of Acrobat AI Assistant, and even Firefly as a core enabler, the development community in India is immense. And so, it's proportional to where you find developers and where you find creatives.
When we talk about India as a market, for most of the companies, while it's number one when it comes to their development centers or in terms of the employees that they have, but the paying power, the purchasing capacity, the contribution to sales or revenues is still minuscule. Do you see that changing?
It's growing dramatically. I think, as the indigenous software market has matured, 15 years ago, it was probably fair to say, everybody used the software, but people didn't pay for it. And I'm actually super impressed with how people recognize that this is intellectual property and they're paying for it. And it actually forces us to also be more resourceful because the cost basis and the cost structure of some of these companies is different. But you take the publishing industry, we are in India, the largest publishing industry in the world. You use our software. And so we've been pleased by the revenue. To your point, it started off perhaps at lower levels relative to the adoption. But I think, that's matured. And, we're investing for the long run. And we believe that, and so we're going to invest. We don't break out the revenues separately, as you know. But, we're pleased. And directionally, it's all headed in the right way.
Right. Shantanu, you know India so well, and I'm amazed with the insight that you had over the cricket match and how the usage dropped. And I think very few.
That's just because I'm passionate about cricket. That had nothing to do with insight. That had just to do with the fact that I'm crazy about cricket.
Sure. I think it's cricket and plus India market that you know so well. Earlier when we used to talk to global CEOs and they'd come every time and talk to us about how much they're growing their India teams. That was, an indication of how they're expanding in the country. But I think AI is going to change a little bit of that, right? The entire talent angle needs to be re-looked at with AI and a lot of jobs being automated. What is Adobe's expansion in India will now mean? If you had to make one prediction, what would that be, Shantanu? Or maybe...
Adobe will continue to thrive and build great products. That would be my production.
Right. In terms of anything that the government can do to sort of accelerate this entire thing, any challenges that you feel? Because we have a very ambitious 2047 to be a developed nation agenda right now.
All I can speak to is when I think about at Waves, what the goals were for making India a creative economy. I think participating in that would be just an incredible opportunity for a company like India. And so that's what I focus on, and I feel it's a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shantanu. That's it for today. You were listening to this conversation on The Morning Brief. Hope you enjoyed it. It was produced by Rajas Naik and sound designed by Indranil Bhattacharjee. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Keep listening.